5 weeks, folks. 5 weeks to the opening weekend of the NFL. But the Raiders hit the field this week on Friday against the Detroit Lions. We're going to talk a lot about that today as well. Welcome to Silver and Black Today, the only all Raiders all the time talk show in Las Vegas with listeners from around the nation, because all of them are members of Raider Nation. It may be 110 degrees outside here in Las Vegas with a heat warning again, but it's football season and the Raiders continue to plug away at training camp in Napa, California. Hi, I'm Scott Branson, the publisher of the Raiders news website, silverandblacktoday.com. And I'm joined, as always, by my co-host and friend, contributor at silverandblacktoday.com, Matt Gutierrez. Matt, happy Sunday, brother.
What's up, Matt? Graduated to friend, not just co-host anymore.
Oh, you're a special friend.
I'm so special now. Man, so we have Knights tickets now.
Oh,
I'm pretty excited about that.
Thing.
We had a little draft yesterday, kind of fantasy style.
Yeah.
We have a group that we're in for season tickets. John with Sports Adrenaline was in there with us. It's his little group he put together. Willie told me to give him a shout out because he's all mad that we didn't tell him about the party. And
WG.
Yeah, so we did a draft. Ready for the season already.
Wow. So
yeah.
was the PSL $3,900?
It was not.
Okay.
No.
All right.
I'm ready to go, though.
People will get that joke.
Season's coming up everywhere. All sports.
It is, man. It is. It's coming. I love the fall. Each week we meet here to talk Raiders football, to give you our views and to take your calls. That's right. Get on the phone, folks. Pick up the phone. Get on the air. Call us at 702-889-5978. That's 702-889-5978. Reminder, in addition to calling in, you can tweet at us here at Silver Black, the number 2 day, Silver Black Today, or tweet at us. If we say something that it makes you angry or makes you happy, or you want to send us money, I am at LV Gully, Gully, and Matt is at Sports Adrenaline. Just leave the E off the end. If you can't spell adrenaline, we can talk later. We'll take your comments any way you want. Also, we're live as always. I'm looking into the camera with our video simulcast as well on YouTube, Facebook Live, Periscope, and Twitch. If you're a gamer, which I am not, but my son is, if you want to watch and listen to us here on Silver and Black Today. So, Matt, they can see us in our wonderful Sunday morning glory.
Dude, shorts, T-shirts, and a hat. That's
right.
Pretty standard.
And I shaved.
Weekend mornings.
I shaved. Man.
I didn't.
I get you.
A couple days old.
I got rid of my beard, if that's what you want to call that hair that was on my face. Anyway, let's run through what we got. The first hour, we're going to talk Raiders camp. We're going to talk a little bit about the season, too. Matt had his latest way too early predictions on the season, and we're going to talk about that as well. And of course, we mentioned Friday night, Matt, the Raiders hit the field for the first time. And speaking of Friday night, don't forget to join Silver and Black Today and our friends from Sports Adrenaline Las Vegas at Legacy Stadium at the beautiful Palazzo Las Vegas for the best Raider Nation game watch party in all of Las Vegas. We'll be there hosting the party with a pregame look at the 2018 Raiders and then a halftime review of the game with giveaways and other special surprises. And if you're a local and you're saying, I don't want to go down to the Strip, parking, blah, 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 guess what?
Cake.
It's free parking. Yeah, it's a great night. Come hang with us on Friday. That's going to be a lot of fun, Matt.
I can't wait, man. That place is awesome to watch games. If you've never been there, it doesn't matter where you sit. There's TVs literally at every single table, every booth. You have the stadium seating in there in front of the sports books. You have a big, just like any regular book in town, that big wall full of 100 different TVs plus the big one in the middle. You can't beat it. You can't beat it. Atmosphere is it's like being in a game. I mean, just people going nuts all the time.
And if you're an OG and you got a roll going, you can also rent one of those private boxes. They have like luxury boxes, which is pretty cool.
Pool tables in there, arcade games, nice.
And more than that,
couches, just nice.
Even more than that, they have the Silver and Black Today crew and the Sports Adrenaline crew, which is going to, obviously, that's why I want to go. But
take care of us.
Just a reminder, because, Raider Nation, the one thing about Raider Nation that's awesome is it's a family thing, right? So no matter what happens, the kids, the only issue with Legacy Stadium, 21 and up. So if you want to come down.
I mean, that's not really an issue if you ask me, but,
If you want to come down with the buddies, you might have to leave the kids home this time. But
it's a Friday night. Go out. Right. Let's go.
Let's go, man. Let's watch some football. Oh, I can't wait. I know it's preseason, but, man, at least that first series.
The first, you know what? Even with preseason, second, third game, even though the third game everybody gets in, but it's at that point, now you're like, all right, I'm ready for the regular season. Yeah. The first preseason game for your team, just happy to see those colors back on the
Oh,
field.
yeah.
You want to do your your analysis and know who's going to make the depth chart here and all that kind of stuff. But it's just fun to see him back on the field.
It is. It is. So we will be excited for that. Join us Friday night, Legacy Stadium. Later this hour, we have a really cool interview with 10-year NFL running back and the co-host of the CBS Sports Radio national show, Tiki and Tierney, and that, of course, is Tiki Barber. He'll be our guest on the attorney Michael Troiano Newsmaker line as Barber gives us his take on John Gruden's return to the sidelines in Oakland and what he thinks of the Raiders heading into the season. You won't want to miss that exclusive conversation only here on Silver and Black today. Now, in our second hour, we'll kick it off really close to home as we welcome in Fox 5 Las Vegas' sports director, Kevin Bolinger, who just got back from a week at Raiders training camp in Napa. He'll be with us to share his impressions of the new look Silver and Black. We'll ask him to talk about the differences between last year and this year since he was at both of those camps. So that should be a great listen. In addition, also right after Kevin, because, man, we're gluttons for punishment. We do not stop, Matt.
No,
We'll preview the Raiders' Week 1 preseason game against the Detroit Lions as Dave Birkett, the Lions beat writer at the Detroit Free Press, joins us again on the attorney Michael Troiano Newsmaker line from Lions camp. He'll tell us how Detroit looks heading into 2018 and preview what he thinks both teams will get out of their joint practices this week before the game on Friday night in Oakland. So, lots of guests happening. We'll also discuss the kind of continued national. I want to talk about this, Matt. Maybe we'll get into it pretty quickly. The narrative by many NFL commentators and others who argue John Gruden is going to struggle because he's, quote, lost touch.
One knucklehead in particular.
End quote. Yes, I sent you this video last night we were watching. And he's lost the modern game, the modern player. Do me a favor, before we have the discussion, just Google Shannon Sharpe, John Gruden, if you want to get fired up for that discussion. There you have it, Raider Nation. You're up to date. We've set topics on the table for you. Now it's time for you to chime in and call Colin Pulicella, who is our crack engineer and our man on the spot here. He's wearing a hat today that says, "I can do all things." That's good because Matt was just telling me his car's really dirty.
Yeah, man.
No. Colin's an awesome dude. He's there taking care of us. Call him. Get on the air with us, 702-889-5978, and we'll get you on the air. So, all right, let's jump in. We got a few minutes here before we go to a break, Matt. Let's talk about yesterday or a couple days ago, Shannon Sharpe on his show talking about how John Gruden isn't going to be able to do it. He can't relate to the modern player and that he's been away from the game too long. Now, Skip Bayless, who I usually never agree with on anything.
That's what angered me more than anything.
The fact that you agreed with Skip Bayless?
I think he's watching the show because he pretty much said everything I've been saying for the last 2 months.
Right.
I mean, it's – go ahead. I'll let you lead into it. But the whole thing just – the narrative is ridiculous, right?
Yeah.
It's a ridiculous narrative.
Well, and I found it late last night, and so I didn't have time to pull the audio for the show. And it was long. I mean, it was like a 6 or 7 minute segment.
Like 8.5, actually.
But again, he's saying he's not going to be able to relate to the younger player. He's not going to be relate to modern players. Skip Bayless, to the other turn, to the Matt Gutierrez point of view, which was he's been around the game. He's not been out of the game.
Right.
And then Shannon Sharpe uses a lot of ridiculous fallacy arguments. For example, like, well, if you're a teacher and you're out of teaching for 10 years, how do you go back in and relate to the kids? Because now they have cell phones and blah, 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 blah.
Here's the thing. He's out of coaching 9 years. He's not Vince Lombardi. He didn't coach in the 50s. I mean, come on, man. There's tape of him in this decade coaching. You know,
Yeah.
like, come on. It's such a lazy take to assume that Gruden has no idea how football works today, that he has no idea how to relate to anybody that's on the field when there's still guys playing today that were playing when he last coached. It's an absurd argument.
Well, and Skip Bayless, I think one of the arguments that bothered me most with Shannon Sharpe trying to take down Skip Bayless and tell him that he was wrong was that, well, Skip, you're friends with John. Okay? So, hey, Shannon Sharpe, are you friends with anybody in the Denver Bronco organization? You're picking them to be the surprise of the year? So my point is, we all bring personal relationships. We all bring things to arguments sometimes that do create somewhat of a bias, and that's fine. Skip Bayless is good friends with John Gruden. He likes him a lot. He always talks positive about him. But his points and his his arguments are not taken aback because of that relationship.
No.
They're valid.
Sharp's arguments were based solely on the fact that he hates the Raiders. And you could tell by what he said once all of his ridiculous points, if you want to call them that, were shoved aside by Bayless. And he immediately started attacking John Gruden's appearance, went with the haircut argument.
Oh, yeah.
Haircut, you need to go here, you need to go there. Where do you get your haircut? Oh, at my house. Go away with that stupid argument. He started talking about how Gruden handed him a Super Bowl because when he was with the Ravens, they blitzed on a 3rd and 16. Raiders got caught in the blitz. Sharp got behind him, got that 90-yard touchdown.
Yep, and went on to
and
win
let's
the
be
Super Bowl.
honest,
Yep.
that Super Bowl was dedicated to Tony Saragusa for flattening Rich Gannon and busting his shoulder late in the first half, and we were stuck with Marcus Tuiasosopo playing quarterback. So he instantly started attacking Gruden and the Raiders based solely on the fact that he hates John Gruden and the Raiders. It had no validity to it whatsoever.
Well, no, we want to hear what you have to say. We'll continue this discussion, too, a little bit after the break, because I want to get to a couple other points from Shannon Sharp, which you also mentioned the appearance knock on Gruden as well, so we'll talk about that. But we want to hear what you have to say. Did Shannon Sharp have a point? Did you agree with him? Did you agree with Skip Bayless? What do you think? Is John
agreeing
Gruden
with Skip Bayless? What a joke.
Is John Gruden out of touch with the modern game, with the modern player? Did it help that he was part of Monday Night Football? And will it help him as he goes back to the sideline? We will see. Time will tell. But certainly that argument, to me, falls pretty flat as we go on. So we're going to step aside here and pay some bills. You're listening to Silver and Black today, coming to you live from the Dollar Loan Center, don'tbebroke.com studios on CBS Sports Radio, 1140 a.m.
This is Silver and Black Today, live on CBS Sports Radio 1140. Here's your host, Scott Gulbranson.
Welcome back. You are listening to Las Vegas's only All Raiders All the Time show on the air. Yes, right. Sports Radio, baby. We are Silver and Black Today. I am Scott Gulbranson. Matt Gutierrez is my partner here, and we are talking Shannon Sharpe and his criticisms of John Gruden and his complete dismissal of the guy. Now, here's the other thing. I find it, you're a commentator. Now, he's a commentator. He's not a journalist. He doesn't have to be objective per se. But the other issue I have with Shannon Sharpe's point of view is he is, let's face it, he's a Raider hater. He's a Denver Bronco. Yep. He has a very close affiliation with the Denver Broncos, which he kept bringing up in this argument. Again, Google Shannon Sharpe, John Gruden, and you'll find it. And so I think he loses all credibility when he starts talking about, well, we beat him. It's like, you're not on the Broncos anymore.
Yeah, and don't let he beat him with the Ravens, by the way. You won your Super Bowl with the Ravens, not the Broncos.
Yep.
And that was because the defense was one of the greatest of all time. That's a top maybe 3 or 4 defense of all time, that 2000 Baltimore Ravens team. So let's not pretend like your offense was a juggernaut when you went, 6 weeks without a touchdown?
Yeah.
Come on. I mean.
No, that's the thing. And so to me, the knocks on his personal appearance and the fact that he can't get away. I think the thing that bothers me most about it, because listen, Gruden and the Raiders have got to prove on the field that they're going to get it done. Okay? I got no problem with skepticism with John Gruden saying, hey, he hasn't coached in a while. He's got to win on the field. I think that's the most fair criticism of Coach Gruden, actually. Okay? So I'm good with that. I got no problem with people feeling that way because it's easy to prove wrong. You win on the field. Right. Now, with the other stuff not relating to players, and I think one of the best points that Skip Bayless brought up was the John Gruden quarterback camp. And so for the last 10 years, or 7 years, whatever it was, he has brought in these kids and talked to them. And if you ever watch that show, these kids connected with John Gruden because it's about football.
Yeah. Name a football guy that's more of a quote-unquote football guy than John Gruden. That's all.
But he doesn't use Snapchat,
man.
Is Shannon Sharpe's point.
And so what? And you know what? It's funny because he talks, again, I go back to this, like, he's from the Vince Lombardi area mentality that Sharpe was coming with. He talked about the last time Gruden coached, the only guys that had an out front personality were quarterbacks. Nobody knew anybody on the team but quarterbacks. Now everybody has social media. Dude, it was 9 years ago.
Yeah.
Stop.
Well,
stop. He coached in, 2009 was the last time? I'm pretty sure there was some social media around back then.
And being a marketing professional myself, that's the day job. That's what I do for a living and have for a long time. He brings up the branding point. Oh, players brand themselves different. They brand themselves this way. It's not just quarterbacks, like you said. Here's the thing, Shannon Sharpe. John Gruden branded himself. He did Hooters commercials. He did Corona. He gets the game.
So, wait a minute. Didn't he play with Ray Lewis? Was Ray Lewis a quarterback? Pretty sure he was a brand in and of himself.
Yeah.
Everybody knew who Ray Lewis was. I mean, right there, your argument falls flat.
It does. And so take a look at that video. Tell us what you think. You can call in 702-889-5978 or hit us up on social media, and we'll talk about that. What we're going to do the rest of this segment is, if you head on over to silverandblacktoday.com, Matt did a series, 4-part series around the Raiders' schedule very early, based on what we have today and what we know. Now, with Giorgio Tavecchio being released, I know you're going to change your projections.
Oh, man, 4-12. It's over. It's a wrap.
But if you go to silverandblacktoday.com and find fourth quarter, it's called Fourth Quarter Raiders way too early. They make their push to make the playoffs. Now, Matt, you went through, this is the last quarter of the season, and you had them, the Raiders at 8-4 heading in. Just to review, you had them heading into the final quarter of the season at 8-4. That Week 14 game, let's talk about that. Mm-hmm. They go and they play the Steelers, but it's at home in Oakland. So talk about
Sunday Night Football.
Sunday Night Football, big game.
Yeah, I mean, this is
ages-old rivalry.
Right. That's that old school 70s Raiders-Steelers rivalry. Sunday Night Football, so under the lights, which is where you want a game like this. I mean, when you see this game on TV, it will look no different than it did 40 years ago. Same uniforms, same look in that gritty old Coliseum. I mean, it's going to look exactly the same. You won't know the difference, except that it's in high def now, so that's nice.
The stadium hasn't changed much.
It's just such an old school, fun rivalry to see. if Villapiano was here, he'd be screaming about how much he hates the Steelers. But it's going to have that feel to it because it's those two teams. It's those storied franchises. Both teams, we know the Steelers are going to be on top of the AFC North like usual. They should win that division again. I think the Ravens may push them a little bit this year, but I don't think they're going to have enough. Bengals, middle of the road. Browns, come on. 1 win in 2 seasons. They're not. Even if they win 5 games, great improvement, but it's still the Browns.
Well, and you have this game. You have it, no immaculate receptions in this one.
None.
Raiders win it under the lights 27-24. And I have to agree with you on this game because if this was in the first quarter or maybe even half of the season, I would actually go the other way because I think the Raiders will take some time to gel.
Yep.
But I like this. I think this could be a turning point for them in the season as they make a rush to the playoffs.
Rashad Melvin, man. Don't sleep on him. He's the only guy to shut down Antonio Brown last year.
That's right. It's going to be a great matchup. That will be the key matchup. Then the next week, they're at Cincinnati. This is, of course, Paul Gunther's return, and I give you major points for working in Admiral Akbar into this game prediction.
I knew you'd like that one, man. I think I did that just for you.
It's a trap.
It is.
Okay.
I hate this game. This game is it's in Cincinnati. It's cold weather. It's a morning game. 10 a.m. start for West Coast. You're between 2 home games, both primetime games to finish out the season in the Coliseum, which may be the last 2 games they play in the Coliseum for all we know. I mean, we don't know. 2019 still up in the air as far as home games go. This game is absolute. I had one other trap game in the season as well. This may be the biggest trap game I've ever seen. It just doesn't feel right. I hate the feel of this game. I hate the look of this game. I feel like you're going to get the most flat performance you're going to see from the Raiders coming into Cincinnati. And unfortunately, I have the Raiders losing an ugly one, 17-13.
17-13. That means that the vaunted, which I believe will be vaunted, Raiders offense is going to have some struggle. But I agree with you. I think the elements, you just don't know what you're going to get in Cincinnati that time of the year. Most likely going to be cold. And who knows? Snow. I mean, Cincinnati is awful. So we'll see what happens with that. And then we go to Week 16 for the Donkeys. The Broncos. I love this game because if you're a Raiders fan out there, what do you want for Christmas? You want a win.
A win.
Right? So the Broncos, now last year the Raiders played the Eagles on Christmas, which was a significant day because Raiders got a gift that day because apparently that's John Gruden met with the Raiders and things got serious. This year, the Broncos and the Raiders on Christmas Eve. Tell us about that one.
Last time the Raiders played at home on Christmas Eve in a primetime game, which I believe was Monday night as well, Sunday night or Monday night, I think it was Monday night, was Charles Woodson's last game in the Coliseum.
That's right.
Just a handful of years ago. It was against the Chargers. Woodson got to play on offense in overtime, which was great. I think he lost 3 yards and finished his career with negative 3 yards rushing. But Raiders won that game in overtime against the Chargers. And the thing surrounding that was Woodson's last game at home, potential for the Raiders' last game in the Coliseum because that's when the move was happening, the pending announcement, and nobody knew what was going to happen. Are they going to get kicked out of Oakland right away kind of thing? This has that same feel. The Raiders are better than the Broncos. I mean, let's be honest. That defense is going to be great for Denver again.
Absolutely.
But their defense ranked, I think, 27th last year. You add Case Keenum, I don't think that's enough to get them over the hump. They do have more pieces on offense this year, but I still don't think that this is going to be a good offensive team. I think this is an offense that is going to need turnovers and great field position to be able to capitalize.
Well, on the John Kincaid show, which you hear a couple hours ago here on CBS Sports Radio National Show, he had Amy Trask, of course, the former CEO of the Raiders,
right,
who got really angry with him when he dismissed the Broncos. I actually disagree with Amy. I think the Broncos will be competitive. I really do.
Yeah.
I think they're going to have ups and downs. But
that defense is going to keep them in games.
Exactly.
Period. It just is.
Exactly. Then we go to Kansas City. This is an Arrowhead, which has always been a rough team. This is Week 17. This is the last game of the season, and the Chiefs and the Raiders might be playing for a spot here, whether it be a wild card or a division title. How do you see this one going?
Yeah, I think the division comes down to this game, and it's not going to be between the Chiefs and the Raiders. It'll be between the Raiders and the Chargers. I think that the Chargers and the Raiders will be right there neck and neck. I have them splitting the season series. They're both going to need that win at the end of the year to put them over the hump. And I think the Chiefs, even though they're going to take a step backwards, which would be, they won the division last year. I think they take a step backwards this year, and they're still going to be competitive, though. They'll be fighting for a wild card spot. The Raiders will be fighting for division title, wild card spot. 2 words, man, Tyreek Hill. This kid scares the hell out of me every time he touches the ball, and he should scare the hell out of the Raiders because every time he touches the ball against the Raiders, he seems to go 70 yards for a touchdown. He's my X factor in this game, and I think it comes down to special teams, and he's dangerous in that punt return game. Unfortunately, I have the Raiders losing the last one of the season, 23-20, tight game again. But 10-6 on the year, is that going to be enough to put them over the hump?
Well,
I see wild card. I don't see division title this year. I think the Chargers are the class of the division.
Well, I think that's a realistic look. I think that the Chargers also could become a dumpster fire very quickly. They already have injuries. They have 2 significant injuries already, and they haven't even gotten out of this first week of camp. So we'll see what happens. But it's hard for the Raiders to win in Kansas City. What do you think? Is Matt a Chief lover all of a sudden?
No.
Call in 702-889-5978. You're listening to the Silver and Black today on CBS Sports Radio, 1140 a.m.
This is Shalik Calhoun with the Oakland Raiders, and you're listening to Silver and Black today.
Indeed you are, Las Vegas and Raider Nation around the world. You are listening to Silver and Black today on CBS Sports Radio, 1140 a.m. in Las Vegas, baby. And we are talking Raiders football. Matt just concluded his segment on the kind of projection of where the Raiders will be this season in the last quarter of the season. He had them at 10-6. What do you guys have them on at? I should say 702-889-5978. Tell us what your prediction is. I think they're going to be 9-7.
Yeah.
And I think even at 9-7, I'm looking at the AFC this year, and I'm thinking that 9-7 will be very, very close to perhaps a wild card, depending on how things shake out. But I think the AFC West actually is going to be much more competitive than people think with those three teams. I
have the Chiefs at 9-7. Like I said, that last game of the year is them fighting for that spot. 9-7 could get you in. It could have you right on the outside looking in. That's that iffy one. You want to get to double-digit wins. I do think the West is going to be good this year. The North, like I said, the Bengals, middle of the road, 8-8, somewhere in there. I think the Ravens will be competitive this year, but I just don't think anybody's going to have enough to take over the Steelers' crown. The South, Texans, Jacksonville, those two teams probably the class of that division, and then the East is trash. And it's the Patriots again, and then a whole bunch of trash beneath them.
Of course.
So
and the Patriots, it'll be interesting. When everybody counts them out, they seem to always bounce back. So to me, you don't know how the Patriots are going to be really till you get to like week 10.
Yeah, well, they're already 6-0.
Yeah.
But seriously, that division is such garbage. They're already 6-0. Buffalo had a good year last year, but I just don't see anybody competing with them out there. So the AFC West from top to bottom, probably the most competitive division. Even if the Broncos are the fourth team in that division, they're going to have a top 5 defense, which is going to keep them in games and probably steal them a lot of games. So they may not finish fourth. They may finish second just because they have such a good defense. You just never know. So I think top to bottom, that's going to be the most competitive division. So they're going to have to fight. You're going to have to fight all year to get to the top.
It'll be interesting, and we'll talk more about that as we go into every week. We will talk to beat writers like we are today with Dave Birkett of the Lions about those games specifically and preview them. Now, Matt, let's switch gears a little bit. You took a look at a little bit of what's happening on the offensive side of the ball, especially when it comes to competition on the Raiders now in camp. Of course, the kicking competition changed 2 days ago. Giorgio Tavecchio of Arrivederci. Oh, my God. I screwed that up. Arrivederci. Excuse me. Paisan Tony over there is giving me the look. Anyway, so kicking's changed. You bring in Mike Nugent now, 36-year-old journeyman, I think, who's just there to push Pinheiro. But
that's all that is, yeah.
So we'll leave kicking aside because that's not really offense.
Special teams.
Yes, it's special.
It's
very
three phases of football games here. Offense, defense, special teams.
Very special.
Yeah.
So when you look at the offense, obviously quarterback, not an issue. There's not a competition there except for the backup. But what are you looking at, Matt? Walk us through the big competition there on offense.
Offensive line is really where the competition lies, and it's on the outsides. It's left tackle, and I don't even want to call it competition at left tackle. It's will Donald Penn be healthy? If Donald Penn is healthy, then he's your starter. I just got done talking about the Broncos and their defense, and Chubb and Miller with their ridiculous pass rush, and Joey Bosa in San Diego. Everybody in the AFC West, Raiders included, has a very dangerous pass rush, especially from those front four, in particular on the outside edge. You have to have somebody at left tackle, that blindside spot that can protect the quarterback. And Donald Penn is, in my opinion, your best option, assuming that he's healthy. If he's not healthy, then you have to weigh out. And by not healthy, I mean not 100%. I think he'll be ready to play once the season starts. During training camp, injuries always seem to be a little bit worse for the veterans than they probably actually are, because they don't want to be in camp every day. They've been doing this for 10+ years. They don't want to have to do that every day. But if Donald Penn is not 100%, then you have to weigh out, is Brandon Parker good enough as a rookie that he will do a better job at that spot than a not 100% Donald Penn will do?
Right. And of course, we heard also yesterday Brandon Parker's already banged up. So we have some issues there. But that offensive line, I'm really interested to see in this first preseason game, because you'll get those rookies. We'll see how much they play Miller, because if you're concerned, and you might need to use Miller if Penn can't get back on time, although I think he will, you don't play him a ton. You need to get him the experience, but you can't get him injured either. So you need to be very careful with that. So to me, how that line gels will be very, very important. And Chris Reed did a piece on the running game this week on silverandblacktoday.com where he talked about how last year's scheme, which was a disaster, didn't you really utilize the talent of that offensive line.
I don't think they had a scheme last year. I really don't. I feel like a lot of times they were just drawing plays up in the dirt, and not literally, but that's how it came across because they didn't stick with anything that worked. They got away from, we talked about Marshawn Lynch in that piece and the power running, the Amari Cooper in the slot situation against Kansas City where he goes off and then they get away from it again. They didn't put guys in the right positions, and I think that's because they were spending the entire season trying to find an identity versus establishing one and sticking with it. They never went with what works consistently. They got away from too much. And this idea that Marshawn Lynch has to run behind a zone blocking scheme because of the jump cut, because he can read blocks so well. No, you run to where the hole is. If the power running blocking system is what works for this offensive line, and they open up a hole, I'm pretty sure Marshawn Lynch is a smart enough and skilled enough running back to hit the damn hole and go.
And then add in Keith Smith there, right, as your lead blocker, all that
he's
stuff.
A bulldozer.
So not only do you have that offensive line built for that, but then you have that extra blocker, that extra offensive lineman, basically. Okay, Matt, now let's go to wide receiver. And we just heard yesterday Martavis Bryant struggling a little bit. What do you see? I mean, everyone said, hey, Seth Roberts is kind of the odd man out there. If anybody's going to go, it's going to be him. Is that true anymore? What do we know? What do we think about the Bryant situation?
Roberts is interesting because you've got more depth there now. You have Ryan Switzer who can come in and play that slot position probably better than Roberts. Let's be honest. Roberts cannot hang on to the ball. He's wildly inconsistent, and the only thing that has really given Roberts a name is the fact that it seems like every time he catches a touchdown, the Raiders win the game. Now, that's because you're getting production out of a guy that's maybe your third or fourth option. That's usually a good thing when guys are sneaking up and being productive,
right?
Because that's adding to what the established guys are already doing. So you can look at that two different ways. But I think Switzer in there is going to push him. Not only that, Cooper's going to be your slot guy starting out, not Roberts. So that buries him a little more as well. Martavis Bryant probably just trying to work his way into a new system. He's gonna be fine. He's the guy that's gonna stretch the field. That's what he's gonna be there for.
Well, the only thing that concerns me about it, Matt, and again, I'm not, and we have never been on the show or on the website purveyors of rumors or trying to get clicks and all that kind of stuff. But from John Gruden's words yesterday, it was a bit of a challenge to Bryant. And I don't necessarily think it was a, hey, you're learning a new system. It might have been a, hey, you need to work harder in that sense. So it'll be interesting to see the next few days going into the game on Friday where Bryant comes out. But I agree with you. I think he'll catch up when it comes to the scheme and everything.
That's what's so great about Gruden is Jack Del Rio was so vanilla. Very much you got the coach speak from Del Rio. And it's not always a bad thing because a lot of guys need to be coddled like that, and they don't want to be called out publicly. But other guys need to be pushed, and Gruden's the kind of coach that's going to push you, whether it's in your face in practice or whether it's a public forum like a press conference where he may not directly say something, but when he walks away, you're going to know, oh, man, I better get my stuff together here because coach is watching. And, maybe that's the push he needs. And, again, you have depth. Marcel Aitman looks good out there.
He does.
He's got size. He's not the burner that Bryant is, but he's got size. He's a red zone threat, and he can take touches away from you at that position.
Well, and I like the role player guys. We talk about Ryan Switzer, right? Here's another guy. Yeah, he's not going to be the everyday explosive guy like a Bryant can get down the field, but he's going to be there. And if you need to shuttle guys for a while until things solidify, I think that's fine. Also, don't forget, all the reports out of camp, and we'll ask Kevin about this from Fox 5 later, all the reports out of camp say that Jordy Nelson, the reports that he's lost a step, way over exaggerated, and Nelson has played in the slot too occasionally when you need him to. So to me, I think that this receiving core overall is going to be fine. They might have some changes and surprises, but it's a strength.
You mentioned him going to the slot. We talked about the vanilla style, not finding your identity offense last season. You're not going to see guys come out and Coop only lines up on the left and Bryant only lines up on the right and they only run this this route out of this formation every single time. And if they're in this formation, you know what's coming. Gruden's offense is complicated. It's wordy. There's a lot of formations. There's a lot of pre-snap motion. There's a lot of check with me. This is going to be a very difficult offense to game plan for, and it's because you have movable pieces. You're going to be able to put guys in different spots. You're going to be able to go 5 wide a lot of times. Jared Cook is a wide receiver at tight end. I mean, this guy has crazy speed, crazy size, and great hands at that tight end spot. Mismatches all over the field.
Yeah, no, it's going to be fun to watch this offense. And if you're a football geek like we are, where you watch all the things that are happening preseason, as boring as it may seem for some people, I'm watching those guys. I'm watching the Seth Roberts. I'm watching the Ryan Switzers to see how they're doing, to see how they play out in that offense, especially with the new scheme. I think on Friday, and we're going to get into this next hour with Dave Birkett from the Detroit Free Press. He's the Lions beat writer, so don't go away. We're going to ask him about this, but I think this is what the preseason really is for. And I think this is a really important preseason for the Raiders because of that scheme and the complexity involved.
It's evaluating depth, man.
That's right. All right, we're going to step aside and get out of here for a few seconds. When we come back, we're going to be joined by NFL great and CBS Sports Radio national host Tiki Barber on his view on John Gruden and the Raiders in 2018. Don't go anywhere. This is a Silver and Black Today on CBS Sports Radio.
Talk the Silver and Black. Call us at 702-889-5978. Here's Matt Gutierrez and your host, Scott Gulbranson, on CBS Sports Radio, 1140 AM.
All right, welcome back to Silver and Black Today here on CBS Sports Radio, 1140 AM in Las Vegas. And now we go out on our newsmaker line, and we're just joyed to be joined by NFL great Tiki Barber. Of course, Tiki had a 10-year NFL career with the New York Giants. He's also the co-host of the Tiki and Tyranny show, which you can hear here on 1140 a.m. from 12 to 3 on CBS Sports Radio as well. Tiki, how you doing today, man?
I am good, Scott. How are you, man?
Doing really good. It's the NFL season, so I have woken up and I'm really happy.
Yeah, exactly. How could you not be happy?
Exactly. Well, and for us, being the future home of the Raiders and our show being focused on the Raiders, I wanted to just spend some time with you to ask you and get your kind of view on how things are going with the Raiders, starting with, you hear a lot of folks nationally with a bit of skepticism around the return of John Gruden to the sidelines for the silver and black. What do you think about that? I mean, him being away but not being away. What's your view on Gruden coming back?
Yeah, no, he wasn't away. I mean, he was in the game, and he was studying the game, and his football, his QB, whatever that QB thing he did on ESPN, the thing was phenomenal. So you know that he's watching tape, right, and breaking things down and staying engaged with the National Football League, even though especially because he's an analyst for Monday Night Football. Look, my brother does analyst work too for Fox News, and the work that goes into being an analyst sometimes is as hard as it is being a player, right? Understanding and detailing what guys do well, so that you can talk about it on a night in or week in and week out basis. So John Gruden has been engaged. The question will be how he's received in a locker room, and just again referencing my brother when he went to Tampa Bay from Oakland back in 2001. There was, I mean, the uptick was palpable. Right? You could feel it, the energy, the mantras, the way that they have carried themselves. It was all of how John Gruden spoke to them. In fact, my brother I'd have conversations with him, and he'd be like regurgitating all these things. I'm like, what are you talking about? And it was like these Grudenisms that just become a part of your vernacular, and so that will happen. Like so that doubt that some people have that John Gruden's not going to have an impact on this team immediately is wrong. But it's not the first act you worry about with John Gruden. It's the second one, right? And the third one. Like what happens down the line as guys start to get used to it? Does he adjust? Does he move? Does he change his philosophy with allowing some of the players to maybe do those type of things in the locker room? But I feel like immediately he's going to have a significant impact on this Raiders team just from a mental attitude and aggression standpoint.
Well, that's the point, Tiki, that I've focused on early on here, and it's early in camp. They're about to play their first preseason game here on Friday.
Yeah.
But that I call it the culture of competition in the Raider camp. If you look what's going on, he's basically said to guys, maybe with the exception of Derek Carr, look, and it's anybody's position. You want to play, you got to show it out here.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, that's how it should be. It should be a meritocracy. I know that there's some guys that are first-round draft picks or have big contracts, but at the end of the day, resting on your laurels because you've quote unquote made it doesn't win you football games. It gets you a good salary, maybe get you build your brand and ups your Instagram count, followers here and there. But at the end of the day, winning football is about who's willing to commit and do the hard things and put in the extra time to be ultra successful. And I love that John Gruden is coming in and doing that, because sometimes you don't get that, right? It's the beauty of having a guy who's actually had coaching experience before, because he knows his successes, but he also knows his failures. This worked one place, this didn't work another place. I can find a happy medium, and based on the guys in the locker room, the relationships that I'm building in the locker room, I can get the right tenor for our team. I mean, that is so important. Yeah, it is also about who's physically stronger or who's picking up the playbook. But at the end of the day, attitude means so much more at this point in the early part of the season.
Absolutely. We're talking to Tiki Barber, of course, the host of Tiki and Tyranny here on CBS Sports Radio, 1140 a.m., and that's, of course, nationally, and the NFL great 10-year career with the New York Giants. I could still see you running through that line, my man. But let's talk about the Raiders in general real quick, too. Now, Vegas here, we're not a betting show, so we don't go down that road. Yeah. But they have them at about 8.5 wins. How do you see the season playing out with a lot of the question marks they have, some of the retooling they've done on this football team?
Yeah, no, it's so hard to figure out. You talk about the secondary, which had an enormous makeover, bringing in Reggie Nelson and Rashawn Melvin, who were scheduled to start. Leon Hall. I mean, basically the entire secondary is remade. And Garyon Conley, who obviously had some issues last year, but he's back in camp and should be available. I mean, those type of things those type of deficiencies were what cost them over the last couple of years, right? They play fantastic football on one side, and even on the front seven on the defensive side, and all of a sudden a breakdown and a big play would end up costing them games. And so when you try to break down schedules in the National Football League, it gets so hard doing the we're going to win this week and we'll lose this week and we'll win this week. But early on, you look at the Rams, the Broncos. They have a tough early schedule. Then it eases out a little bit before you start digging back into the Seahawks, who are perennially good, and then later on the Steelers and the Broncos to finish out this season. So it could be a little bit dicey, could be up and down. But at the end of the day, that actually might get them into the postseason. And right now, all they got to focus on is getting into that second season and taking it from there.
That's right. Now, Tiki, one of the things that I've been big on when I look at this team and what they did to make over the roster a little bit is how they've infused it with veteran leaders. Talk about the importance of bringing in guys like that who might not be the big contract guys to begin with, and they might have something to prove. Doesn't that help that team, especially with the younger pieces they have in place?
Well, yeah, because a lot of these guys they're trying to prove it themselves. They're trying to reprove themselves. And you look at their defense. I mean, I think their whole linebacking core is remade, right? I think
yep.
The entirety of their linebacking core is remade. Bruce Irving is the one that everybody knows from the Seattle days. But when you do that, when you bring in those guys that have success, there's a credibility factor, especially if they've had real success. That's been recognized around the league, whether it's to be a Pro Bowl or All-Pro recognitions, etc. Those type of things sit with the young guys. More importantly, and I think this may be what you were alluding to, Scott, more importantly, it shows that they want to win now. Right? This is not a we're bringing in a new head coach and in a couple of years we'll get there. It's no. We want to win right now. We have talent. We have a window that's open. We have division that's tough as hell, but we have a window that's open, and let's go after it right now. That means something to players, both young and old, and to fan bases as well, especially a fan base in Oakland, which knows that they're going to lose the team in a couple of years to you guys in Las Vegas. They want to see success now before they head off and go down to Vegas.
That's right. Tiki Barber, co-host of Tiki and Tyranny here on CBS Sports Radio from 12 to 3 in Las Vegas. Also, check out his podcast, Tiki's Barbershop, one that I love. And also, I have five kids, Tiki. I have 4 boys. They love the Barber Game Time book. So
nice. I love it.
You can check it out. Tiki Barber, thanks so much for joining us. Appreciate it.
My pleasure. Anytime.
All right, Tiki Barber. Cool conversation. I think he's pretty much in agreement with how we've been talking about the season coming up, Matt.
Yeah, if you view it objectively and not, you're not just trying to stir up some nonsense argument, you're running your narrative kind of thing, then yeah, it's ridiculous to say that Gruden has been away from the game and is out of touch with the game when he's maybe been more entrenched into the game than anybody else. Yeah,
and what I like about it too is I think you're seeing some folks in the media, especially national media covering the NFL, who have decided that it's more palpable and marketable to take one side or the other. Either he's out of touch or he's the greatest thing since sliced bread. What I liked about Tiki's view and his approach on this is he's looking at it completely objectively. He's a New York guy. He's a New York media guy too, okay? But he's like, hey, yeah, they got a lot to prove on the field, i.e. he said the second act. The first act he thinks is good. It's getting the players together. It's getting the culture where it should be. Second act is on the field. And he said in the interview, I can see this team competing or being right there to compete for a playoff spot, which I think is realistic overall.
Well, I mean, isn't that every team right now is you have to go out and prove it on the field? Nobody's won anything until they go out and win something.
Yeah.
It's a new season. You can scratch everything from last year.
All right, we'll be right back after this. Top of the hour sports news update coming next. CBS Sports Radio, 1140 a.m.
Get a shot of adrenaline, sports adrenaline, Saturday morning from 8 to 10 on CBS Sports Radio, 1140 a.m.
The most in-depth coverage of the Silver and Black as they set their sights on Las Vegas for 2020. Live from the CBS Sports Radio 1140 studios, it's Silver and Black today. Join the conversation by calling 702-889-5978. Now, here's Scott Gulbransen and Matt Gutierrez.
Raiders training camp is the topic for this segment, and it's time to go out on the attorney Michael Troiano newsmaker line as we welcome in one of the really good guys in TV here in Las Vegas, and of course that is the Fox 5 sports director, Kevin Bolinger, who is just back from Napa. Kevin, did you bring wine for your wife?
That's the first question she asked me as well. We do not pack any away, but of course, when you're in Napa, you have to partake a little bit up there and check it out.
Yeah, I would hope so, man.
Of course, some wine and cheese, and of course, Silver and Black football. So, Kevin, what we want to ask you, I mean, you were up there, you had significant time around the team. What's the you were there last year, right off the news of the move to Las Vegas, the impending move to Las Vegas, and then you're up there this year, different coaching staff, whole different feel. What was the difference for you as a member of the media and kind of taking in the culture that's been created up there?
You could tell right away that things were different. It was intense. It was a little bit more, I don't want to say that it was unfocused under Jack Del Rio, but just that first practice, it was all business. And a lot of that has to do with you have new systems going in on both sides of the ball, but there was a different field of the practice right away with guys moving around, the chatter. Everything was a lot more focused and intense on the first practice, and that carried through the entire time that I was there last week.
Hey, Kevin, Matt here. We've heard the talk the second that Gruden was hired. Can he work with Carr? Can Carr work with Gruden? Oh, such different personalities. Carr's, led by his faith and all of that stuff. How's their relationship, and what does it look like out on the field?
They're a lot more similar, I think, than people really think they are, especially when it comes to the work ethic part. Derek Carr's always been known as somebody who spends a lot of time studying film. He wants to talk football a lot. He's one of the first ones in usually every day. Gruden, we all know what he does, getting up early and being in the office early. And we talked to both of them about that, and especially because Gruden's known to be a little tough on quarterbacks at times, and is Carr prepared for that? And Carr's like, bring it on. I mean, we've had a great dialogue, breaking things down that we see, and the quote for me that I take away most from that first week was, if your head coach and your quarterback aren't the two most hardest working people on this team, then there's the problem. That's the recipe for success. Quarterback, head coach, working their tails off harder than anybody else to make sure it triggers the success down the road.
Yeah, I don't think people in the know ever really doubted whether or not Carr and Gruden could work together because, like you mentioned, they're both football guys. They're both guys that want to get in there, study, work hard, and do the best that they can for this team to win. They talk about Gruden not being able to relate to players. We think that's garbage. How are the other players buying into Gruden's system? How are they reacting to him on the field and interacting with him?
They like it so far. Obviously he hasn't gotten in as many people's faces yet, but they like the intensity. And the one thing that every single player has said is, we know where he stands on everything. We know he wants to win. We know every single thing that comes out of his mouth or that we do in practice is designed to make sure that we win, and they like that. They're contrary to what some people might think, these guys aren't here to just pick up a paycheck. They want to win. They want to ring, and they know that bringing Gruden in maybe raises the bar and will help everybody raise their game to another level to give them a chance to do that here somewhere down the road.
Again, we're talking to Kevin Bolinger, the sports director here at Fox 5 TV in Las Vegas. Of course, Fox 5 is where you can catch the Raiders preseason games. They are the official broadcast partner in Las Vegas, including Friday night's game against the Lions. So, Kevin, you have this remade roster. You've talked about the different feel under John Gruden and what the players are. There's also a lot of new veterans on the roster, guys who've been around the block plenty to kind of tutor those young kids, to tutor the guys like Maurice Hurst and so on. How has that feel been for someone in the media who's got to talk to guys and get the story? What kind of difference has that been in what you saw up in Napa?
Well, the Raiders made more than 40 transactions in the off season, so they did overhaul the roster, and it is a bit of a culture change. From a media standpoint, the veterans are a little more comfortable with dealing with us in terms of kind of where they want to take the conversation. Sometimes the younger players are a little afraid to say certain things, but the veteran guys will come out there and kind of just lay it out there. And I think that in terms of on the field and guiding some of these young guys along, it's an interesting thing because some of these young guys are going to potentially be taking some of these veteran spots somewhere down the road. But that hasn't been an issue. Donald Penn, who has been working off to the side a lot as he recovers from his surgery, has been working a lot with Colton Miller this entire offseason and in training camp to help get him up to speed. And there's the potential that Colton Miller could take Donald Penn's spot by the time the season rolls around. But you're still seeing that cohesiveness of the veterans bringing the rookies and first and second year players along.
Kevin Bolinger, Fox 5, Las Vegas sports director, is our guest today. Kevin, speaking of veterans, what is the talk amongst players, if any, about the Max situation, and what's the tone surrounding that whole deal?
They don't talk about the contract negotiations. The line that most of them use is we don't get involved in other players' business in terms of financial. However, they all know and say, look, we can't be successful without Khalil Mack. He's the motor that kind of makes things run. And everybody expects a deal to get done, especially for that reason. But in the meantime, they've got to go on as if he's not going to be there. And I think that it's going to put a little more on Bruce Irvin to be the vocal leader, which he has done so far in training camp of that defense. But they know that they need to get Khalil Mack. Now, how much they're pushing Reggie McKenzie on the side, hey, let's get a deal done.
Yeah, right.
Get him in here. That they will not talk about. And they haven't spoken a lot about the contract negotiations. The front office hasn't. And so I think a deal will get done before the first game. But the Raiders, it's an interesting position because they know long-term they need to have Khalil Mack. They also know that they have franchise tags that they can put on him as well, but you also don't want to create that divisive situation with one of your star players. So, look at Pittsburgh and the problem that's created.
With Bell, no doubt.
So I think that's kind of that fine line that Reggie McKenzie's walking right now to make sure that they work out a deal that financially makes sense for the organization, but also is going to make sure that they can have the success on the field.
Now, Kevin, too, one of the difficult positions that the Raiders organization is in, and that includes when we deal with them, right, which is they're in that, being a Catholic guy, they're in purgatory, as I call it, right? They're between Oakland and Las Vegas, and so they're not real. When they're up in Napa, they're up in Northern California, they don't exactly want to put Las Vegas first. What's the mood around there? Are you starting to see it maybe shift a little bit and be more even than maybe it was last year when it was really new?
Absolutely. Last year, Las Vegas was a taboo subject for everybody on the football side, players and the coaching staff as well. They did not want to talk about Las Vegas at all. And this year, they were a little more open to it in terms of they know it's 2 years away. They know at this time next year they're going to be talking about the transition of moving everything to Las Vegas. So for the players like Derek Carr that know they're going to be around, they were a little more open in talking to us when we sat down with them for a piece that we're doing for one of the preseason games about going and already looking for houses out in the area, trying to do a little research on the schools for his kids. Mm-hmm. Those are things that they did not talk about at all last year. So I think that we are starting to see a bit of a shift in terms of the conversation because they know that it's coming and it's getting here closer. They'll, of course, throw out the generic line of we're worried about the here and now, but they also know they have to to look ahead a little bit because it's going to get here faster than they think.
Yeah, and I know you're as the sports director at Fox 5, so you don't need my help in coming up with features. But if you're doing a feature on real estate, you got to talk to Mo Hurst because he's been really public about how the sticker shock of housing in the Bay Area has been for him. So it would be funny to show him some of what he can get here for his big money because he got a nice contract. But, Kevin, we want to thank you and also want to invite you out. We're going to have, I know you probably got something going with Fox 5 being the official broadcast partner. We have our viewing party out at Legacy Stadium. You're obviously welcome to come, and we appreciate you taking the time to spend with us today.
No problem. We'll see if we can get camera out there. I'll be in Oakland for the game this
week
against the Lions, and it's going to be an interesting ride to see what Chucky brings to the table, and these first few preseason games will be fun to watch.
All right, Kevin, thanks for giving us some of your Sunday, and we'll talk to you again real soon.
All right, thanks, guys.
All right,
Take
Kevin
care.
Bolinger, who is the sports director out at KVVU Channel Fox 5 here in Las Vegas, the official preseason home of the Raiders on television. Great to hear his comments, man. It's good to get that perspective of somebody who was up there from here in Las Vegas.
Yeah, and right away, the tone. Gruden is a football guy. No nonsense. I mean, he can be a player's coach. He can get behind you. He can be rah-rah, maybe more than anybody on the sideline. I mean, he looks like one of the players out there. But when it's time to work, come to work. Pack your lunch, come to work, grind all day long so that you get results on Sundays. That's what he's about. It's, get rid of the music. We're not out here to party, have fun, relax, enjoy the environment. No, get out here and play football, man.
No lounging.
It's time to play. Let's go.
No lounging. And you know what? I really believe, like Kevin said, and like we've talked about today, that atmosphere, that attitude, that culture is 2 wins to me. I mean, they were a 6-10 team last year. It's easy 2 wins, could be more. All right. Woo. Next up, we're going to talk to Dave Birkett about the Detroit Lions, who the Raiders will be facing on Friday in preseason week 1. We'll preview the game for you here on Silver and Black today on CBS Sports Radio, 1140 a.m. Oh, man, the anchor of that offensive line, Rodney Hudson, bringing us back in.
Beast.
He is a beast, man. He's a big man, too. Remember we met him out at
man. They're just
the charity
amazing.
event?
Yeah.
Wow. Good
dude.
All right. Well, we are now going back out on the attorney Michael Troiano newsmaker line, and we're going to bring in Detroit Lions beat writer Dave Birkett of the Detroit Free Press as the Raiders prepare to conduct joint practices and their first preseason game in Oakland against the Lions on Friday. Dave, welcome to Silver and Black Today here on CBS Sports Radio 1140.
Happy to be on. How you guys doing?
Doing well, man. I'll tell you what, we are ready for some footballs. I'm sure you are. You've been knee-deep in it anyway as you've been covering camp. But we look at the Lions last year, and I think one of the words you could really use to describe them was inconsistent. They showed some really great flashes, and they had a lot of injuries in different and key positions. Now you have Matt Patricia in there as the head coach, bringing in that new scheme. How do things look so far in camp for the Lions heading into 2018?
Yeah, different than they did under Jim Caldwell, that's for sure. I mean, they, I think they've been in pads the last 4 days here. They're not practicing today, but they had it's been a little more physical. It's certainly been a little more, active, I guess. Just the way they do things is a whole different operation. But look, I think offensively it's going to be a lot like the same Lions team that we've seen. They bring a lot of those guys back. They're going to throw the ball around a little bit, maybe a better running game, revamped offensive line a little bit. Defensively is where the big changes are here, and that's where the Lions are really counting on, I guess, a Matt Patricia type bounce. They didn't do a whole lot to upgrade that unit this offseason, so they're counting on their new coach to maybe turn that unit around a little bit. So it's definitely been a little bit of a different feeling around Lions camp this summer.
Hey, Dave, thanks for joining us. Matt Gutierrez here. My favorite, you're going to talk about the Lions. You got to talk about the fact that they still have Jim Bob Cooter, just because that's the greatest name in football, right? I mean, it's just, but they retained the offensive coordinator. You talked about the running game, 32nd in the league last year, but LeGarrette Blount, doesn't that automatically mean that the Lions are going to the Super Bowl because that's all this guy does is play for Super Bowl contending teams lately?
Last 2 years, man. He won it with New England a couple of years ago, Philly last year. I mean, look, I'm not going to go that far. I mean, it's been since 1991 since they last won a playoff game, so if they can just make the playoffs or win a division, I think a lot of fans around here would be stoked. But, yeah, look, they set out this offseason. They had two really big needs, and it was that running game that they needed to fix and maybe the pass rush that they needed a little more help on. And just the way things played out in the draft and who was available in free agency, they ended up sinking, the vast majority of their resources into that running game. They signed LeGarrette Blount. They drafted Kerryon Johnson in round 2 out of Auburn. They drafted Frank Ragnow, their first-round pick, who's going to start at left guard, who's looking really good so far in camp. So it's going to – look, they're still going to throw the ball. When you have Matthew Stafford pulling the trigger, you don't want to take the ball out of his hands too much. They have a pretty good wide receiving core. But, yeah, they're counting on being a more balanced offense this year and really being a much better rushing team.
Hard to believe Stafford's in his 10th season now as an NFL quarterback. It just, it just flies by, right?
Yes, aging sucks. I know. It's like you see these young guys come out. I'll tell you what, though. I like Kerryon Johnson. He was a guy that when we were doing draft coverage – Dave, I really liked him, and is the sense that he, with Blount there, that he's going to be able to develop into that back they want to highlight, or are they expecting him to contribute right away?
Well, I'll tell you what. I mean, Matt Patricia and Bob Quinn, the Lions general manager, they've sort of been consistent in saying that they believe that in the NFL you need sort of a timeshare system back there to be successful, just backs that can do different things and, split up sort of the pounding that they take. But I'll give you guys this little nugget here that I think it's the last 4 years, the only running backs teams have traded up to get in the first 3 rounds of the draft are Melvin Gordon, Delvin Cook, Elvin Kamara, Kareem Hunt, and then Kerryon Johnson. So that just sort of tells you, I don't know that he's going to be able to approximate the production of those guys, but that's what the Lions are hoping they have in him. And it wouldn't surprise me at all if he's getting the bulk of the work of the backfield, and then you see as the season goes on, but with some Theo Riddick mixed in as the running option, and LeGarrette Blount being the sledgehammer that can get you that tough yard near the goal line or on third downs.
We're talking to Dave Birkett, who is the beat writer for the Detroit Lions at the Detroit Free Press. Now, Dave, you wrote a story yesterday that Matt Patricia had sort of unannounced, right? He was probably trying to hide it from you guys, controlled scrimmage. And you really talked about how the defense, who you looked at sort of as a weak link, something that had to be improved, really did a good job and surprised you. Talk about that defensive unit, especially up front, and what they've changed and why you think they might be onto something there.
Well, I mentioned it. I mean, it really has been the biggest thing that they've left unattended, I guess, here. I mean, they spent a 4th-round pick on Deshaun Hand, but aside from that, they didn't really do much to improve that defensive front. Ziggy Ansah, their best pass rusher, he's been out all spring and summer. He's still recovering from knee surgery that he had. So a lot of what they have, built up there is it's going to hinge on Ziggy contributing and being the pass rusher that he can. And because he's been such an injury concern the last couple of years, I'm not sure that he's going to be able to do that. But in that scrimmage yesterday, again, it's no tackling, so you still got to take some of this with a grain of salt. But I was impressed by what that defense did. They do have a pretty deep secondary. They will be able to give some different looks with their cornerbacks and their safeties and some of the size they have in that defensive backfield. It at least gives me hope that I thought maybe they'd be a bottom third of the NFL unit or something like that. It at least gives me hope that if they keep Ziggy Ansah healthy, maybe they can have a defense that at least complements that offense and is enough to keep them in the playoff mix.
Hey, Dave, we're talking with Dave Birkett, Detroit Lions Free Press beat writer. Really, I think the Lions are in a really tough position here, and not because they can't be a good team, because a lot of times what you see in divisions is teams build their team around trying to beat the best team in the division. So if you have a really offensive-heavy leader in that division, they want to be better on defense and vice versa. You guys are in a position now where you've got the Packers, who we know are going to be a dynamic offense led by Aaron Rodgers, and then you have the defense of the Vikings, which was the best defense in the NFL last year. How do you see the Lions building to compete with two very different styles of play?
Yeah, no, I'm with you. I mean, look, if I'm putting the pecking order of the NFC North, I'd probably put the Lions third right now behind those two teams, and Bears maybe they'll be a little bit improved. Their offense should be at least. I'm not sure that they're quite ready to contend yet, but those two teams that you mentioned are very good, both playoff caliber. The Vikings came within a whisker of reaching the Super Bowl last year, I guess, or playing for it at least. And if you got Aaron Rodgers pulling the trigger, you're a Super Bowl contender. So. From the Lions standpoint, one thing that Matt Patricia has talked a whole lot about, and this goes sort of, back to what he learned under Bill Belichick as the Patriots, is being able to compete and win different ways. And, I mentioned the versatility they have in the secondary, right? They have a couple big cornerbacks that they think they can match up with guys, but they also have, some smaller guys. They'll play 3 safeties at times. They'll use a lot of that. Nickel and dime package in different looks with whether it's 3 safeties or 3 cornerbacks out there. And I think offensively they want to do the same thing. Matt Patricia has said, right, that you need to be able to match up because the talent is too close in this league. You need to be able to match up with what some other team does well and what they don't do well and be able to take advantage of those things. So I think that's what the Lions are sort of building towards, a team that even if the offense is widely considered the strength of this team, maybe they can win in different ways offensively and defensively.
All right, again, Dave Birkett from the Detroit Free Press. Now, Dave, let's focus a little bit here. I know it's the preseason, but the Raiders and the Lions, they're coming out to practice against the Raiders for some joint practices. How does this matchup look, and what exactly have you heard? We heard John Gruden say they want to work on some goal line packages, which is really just telling us nothing. But have you heard from Patricia or anybody on the Lions staff kind of what they're looking to get out of the Raiders practices, and then what you think you see in the game, at least for a couple series?
Yeah, Matt hasn't talked about these practices since I guess back in the spring. But he does say that these are some of the best evaluations that he'll get all year. And I know from talking to players the last couple of days, they're anxious already to go see some different faces and just get out of banging heads with each other a little bit. So to me, I think the Raiders obviously have a pretty good offensive line. The Lions' defensive line is not a strength of theirs right now. Their defensive front is not really a strength of theirs right now, and they have some injuries up front there too. Ashawn Robinson, the third-year defensive tackle, hasn't practiced the last few days, but that's an interesting matchup to watch for me. And that secondary, I guess, against some of those receivers. Obviously, we know Jordy Nelson pretty well up here, so yeah. I think it'll be interesting to especially get some evaluations on the defensive side of the ball for the Lions. I know they would have loved to have got a test against Khalil Mack in that pass rush and sort of see what this offensive line has. Obviously, he probably won't be out there, so that'll have to wait. But
yeah, I think
when you talk about the game, just I don't think they're going to play their starters much, if at all. The last 2 years when they've had joint practices, they sat out just about everybody that was of any importance, and I would imagine that's going to be the same thing come Friday.
All right, Dave Birkett, want to thank you for spending some of your Sunday with us. We appreciate it, and good luck this season.
All right, guys, we'll see you this week.
All right, Dave Birkett with the Detroit Free Press, Detroit Lions beat writer, with a breakdown there of the Lions. When we come back, we will talk a little bit about the game coming up and our watch party on Friday night at Legacy Stadium. You're listening to Silver and Black today on CBS Sports Radio, 1140 a.m.
The only way to take Silver and Black today with you is with the radio.com app. Download it today and search CBS Sports Radio 1140 in Las Vegas and listen to us anytime, anywhere.
That's right. Take us in your pocket.
That's weird.
I know. That's why I like saying it. That's why I like saying it. Put us in your pocket. Put us in the back of your lady's pocket. You can. We'll just stop there. But yes, the radio.com app. If you don't have it, you got to get it. Not only can you listen to us, you can listen to Sports Adrenaline, our brothers and sister, on Saturday morning here as we start this rise.
Am I my own brother?
Yes.
Okay.
This rise of CBS Sports Radio in Las Vegas. There's big things happening here. You don't even know half of them. They're coming. But yes, radio.com app, you can get us there. Also, if you're listening to us and you want to watch us on Facebook and want to watch our executive producer and our video director, Tony Cardasco, yell at Matt for not being in his spot. He's directing. You want to come adjust the cameras too?
Always something with this guy.
There's always something going on. That's my paisan. All right, but we are back. I want to thank again Dave Birkett from the Detroit Free Press, who the last segment gave us a nice breakdown of the Lions, and it should be interesting. Now, let's talk, Matt, a little bit about, we're going to go back. We'll talk about the game in the last segment in the watch party that we're holding at Legacy Stadium for all of Raider Nation. And if you're not there, then, I don't know, we might have to revoke your card for being in Raider Nation. But let's talk a little bit about this week, too. Derek Carr, John Gruden, Kevin Bolinger mentioned it and how that relationship with the quarterback and the coach, if they're not working their tails off, then there's a problem. So Derek Carr, in a press conference this week, they asked him about meetings and what's expected of him at meetings with John Gruden. Here's what Derek Carr had to say.
It's just a different way of meeting. We meet differently. We'll be watching film and out of nowhere, Coach Gruden, Derek, call the play. Where are you going with it? Derek, call the play. What are you going with it? What's the coverage? What's the corner's technique? What's this? What's that? What's that? And I'm answering, bam, bam, like that. Every meeting, I got to be on my game in front of my teammates, and it's awesome, man. I absolutely love it. He wants me to get up in front of the room and show I do things and hear it from my voice, the way I face, and just the way the quarterback position is treated. And he's a quarterback guy. Being the head coach is completely different.
You know what that's called? It's called responsibility. That's called putting the team in the hands of your leader, which is your quarterback. You want your quarterback to be the leader of your team, and Gruden knows that Carr needs to be the leader of that team. Here's the responsibility, kid. Go out there, learn the playbook as well, if not better than me, so that when I put you on the spot, when it's fourth quarter, 3rd and 12, and you're down by 6, you got to get it done.
You got to get it done. And, that goes without saying, and I love it. But also, I know we just had an issue. We had a hiccup in that soundbite, and at the same time, our video feed went down. So we're getting that back up. Don't worry. Not on your end, Tony. It's on the internet's end. But I'm starting to develop my Derek Carr impression. Are you ready for this? Because there's only one thing. I don't know. I want to go to a sports book and get the over-under on every press conference how many times Derek Carr says, awesome, awesome, awesome. It's awesome.
Positive. He's a positive dude.
Well, I know that. He is, and I love it, but I'm just saying that's how it goes. So Carr, talking about the meetings now, that relationship between him and Gruden, we've talked about the importance of it over and over and over again since it happened, but let's also listen to him, too. Here's what Carr had to say about that relationship and working directly with John Gruden.
Absolutely. Me and Coach Gruden talk about all the time. We don't feel like we're in the first year together. Clearly, we spend a lot of time together. I started sounding like him with the way I talk and certain comments I make, which is cool. That's good. That's how it should be. Him and I should be on the same page. We should think the same way. There should be no secrets between us. I know where he's at. He knows where I'm at. And just having that open relationship like that with the head coach, also so open that the other players see it, that is just good for the football team.
That's a key point right there.
Hold up. Is DC dropping F-bombs in practice now? He's starting to sound like Gruden?
I bet you he is. I bet you he is. Now I'm just waiting for the haircut.
Dude, he doesn't have any hair. He shaves his head all the time.
He shaves his head all the time.
But that's what you want, though. Your quarterback should mirror your head coach. You always talk about teams taking on the personality of their head coach.
Right.
Unfortunately for the Raiders, they took that very laid-back, laxed, soft kind of approach that Jack Del Rio seems to take last year, and everything fell apart. If they can take on that character of John Gruden, that Chucky mentality, that I'm going to smash you in your face type of football, it's going to be a very different-looking team.
But like Kevin said earlier, too, the quarterback and the coach in Gruden and Carr are a lot more alike than people thought.
It sounds a lot like Gannon and Gruden.
No,
man.
exactly.
I keep talking about it. It sounds a lot like that.
Speaking
of
Gannon,
the right kind of guy in there.
Gannon's going to be up on the show pretty soon. We
I
just
can't
want
wait
to tease
talk
people.
to Gannon.
It's going to be a good
Looking
spot with him. But yeah, and I think that whole concern was way off base. And Derek Carr continues to talk about that relationship. Here's another cut from Derek Carr on John Gruden.
Every day. Yeah.
Multiple times?
Multiple times every day. Yes. Yeah. Whenever we're not doing something, we're together. If we're, in an offensive meeting, if we're not in the offensive meeting, I'm sitting right next to him, in the quarterback room, So, if I'm not in on a rep, I'm standing right by him. He's hey, what do you think? What would you get to here? What would you do here? What would you do? And, that's the way it should be. He challenges me. He pushes me. He wants the best for me. And you can tell that with his preparation every day. He's ready every day to give me something to let me dominate that day. It's awesome.
Now, that was, I set it up wrong. Do they talk a lot was the question from the media pool. And his answer was every day, all the time, multiple times.
Why wouldn't they? And why? I understand.
I think it's the dysfunction from last year.
Maybe, but why would? Okay, Gruden is the ultimate quarterback coach. He had the quarterback, John Gruden quarterback
Snapchat.
camp. When's the last time that a team went to Snapchat on 4th and 2? Let me check Snapchat and see what everybody thinks we should do. Nobody's doing that. Gruden is a quarterback coach through and through. He that's the position he played in college. That's the position he knows better than anything else. And Derek Carr is just he's a film rat, man. He loves to get in there, go over film. He wants to win every single down. They can't work together. Gruden swears they can't work together. Those are lazy takes. They're just lazy.
And again, I'm not going. I think looking backwards is never really productive, except for if you're looking to learn and understand how things have progressed. So that's I make this caveat because when you look at what Derek Carr just said in that clip about not only talking to his coach every day, but he said specifically that he gives me challenges and sets me up to succeed every day. And you have to wonder, the money invested in a quarterback, the time invested in developing that quarterback, what the hell happened last year? How does a Todd Downing, how does a Jack Del Rio, how do they just put this kid on the curb and don't challenge him and let him be the leader he needs to be?
You have a players type coach in Del Rio. You have a rookie offensive coordinator that I don't think was quite ready for that job. Not only that, there was a lot of pressure on them last year, especially offensively, because they were such a prolific offense in 2016.
They blew out Musgrave, yeah.
Yeah, they were such a great offense. They were risk takers. They went after it on 4th down. They went after it on 2-point conversions. Everything they did came up smelling like roses. So you have this pressure to live up to everything that you did in that year. And right off the bat, they started with, well, then we have to upgrade an offensive coordinator because he's run his course. We have to be better. And our quarterback's coach has this great relationship. So he's clearly ready to call a football game, which he wasn't. And everything started to snowball. Then you had Derek Carr with the back injury, still coming off the broken leg. You had the whole kneeling situation that seemed to disrupt things right off the bat. Not just for the Raiders, for every team in the NFL, there was so much discord. You just had this snowball effect where they couldn't get on track. They again, no identity offensively. They didn't know which direction they wanted to go. Just so many things, literally and figuratively, out of position on the field.
Well, and it'll be interesting because I still think, you hear all the positives, but I have to go a level deeper. There's going to be challenges. I'm not just talking on the field.
Well, they're not going 16-0.
No,
right?
no. There's going to be challenges, and what I mean by that, too, is in the locker room, you have guys who played with Derek Carr who looked at him a certain way, and they saw how the coaching staff either set him up or didn't set him up last year to be the leader. So now this guy's going to assert himself and be the leader he should be, and there's probably going to be some guys that aren't going to react well to that. We'll see if they last. We know there were some of them last year. They're gone. Right?
Yeah, well, see, a lot of those guys, though, were there in 2016. And
true, and saw him at that, yeah.
Yeah, and whether or not he led as far as wins and losses goes last year, Carr was still the leader of the team. He's the emotional leader of the team. He's kind of the heartbeat of the team. Mac more of the guy on the field leader, and when he gets there, he'll take over that role. And you got Bruce Irvin stepping up as now a guy in charge.
Absolutely, Irvin, that's a great story we'll have to spend another segment on. But I'll tell you, Derek Carr last year, where he lost me and where I think he was set adrift, was a leader takes responsibility, no question. I mean, it's the hallmark of a great leader. At the same time, last year, over and over again, it's Matt. Guys dropping balls, that's my fault. Now, I like not calling out your guys, but sometimes you got to call out your guys.
Well, that's where Gruden steps in.
Exactly.
So Carr doesn't have to do that.
No, Carr has to do it, though, too.
I don't think he does now. I think maybe last year he probably should have because you didn't have anybody that held anybody accountable in that locker room.
Fair point.
There was no accountability. Carr's not going to do it. Del Rio's not going to do it. Downing's not going to do it. Now Carr can be the good guy, locker room, heartbeat of the team kind of leader, and Gruden can go, hey, get your crap in gear. You're dropping balls. That's not acceptable. And he can go in front of the press after a game and go, yeah, guys need to hang on to the damn ball.
Yeah, and the only thing I would add to that, Matt, is I do think it's all in how you do it, right?
Right.
And to me, Derek Carr does have to do it, but in a different way than Gruden does, right? Which is Gruden can take you in and chew you and you know what.
Right. Well, that's where their different personalities come in, right? Even though they are very similar in football, they have very different demeanors and different ways that they go about things.
You play to the strength. For example, Carr can criticize somebody by telling them how much he appreciates them and he knows that they're better than that type of thing.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So I think that'll happen. I think them working
backhanded compliment kind of thing.
Yes, them working in concert that way in their own way to their strengths.
I think their dynamic is great.
It is.
I think it's going to be great.
You're listening to Silver and Black today on CBS Sports Radio 1140. We'll be back right after this word.
You're listening to Silver and Black today.
Go Irish. Tim Brown. Man. I am an Irish fan. Notre Dame, and you'll see that represented even on the Raiders show.
I saw his Heisman Trophy out there in South Bend a few years ago when I went up to see Brown get inducted.
Awesome.
We had to stop in South Bend and do the little tour and got his little his stuff in the locker room in there, a little thing for him, and man, that's cool. That was cool. I'm not a Notre Dame guy one way or the other, but
we'll change that.
But that was cool, man. That was cool. No,
they're going to surprise the world this year anyway.
Change anything.
The offensive line, people think so. Anyway, we're not talking Irish football. We're talking Raider football. But hey, Irish
turn there.
Irish history with the Raiders. You got Tim Brown. You got Ricky Bell. You got all these guys who were Irish guys because Al Davis, he liked them. Awesome.
I'm glad he got him. Tim Brown was my favorite, man. Growing up, that was my guy.
Colin, we got to cut that awesome from Derek Carr, and we'll just have it ready to go. Awesome. Anyway, he says awesome a lot.
He does.
I think it's pretty awesome. Anyway, so we're moving on in our last segment here as we get a little loopy after a long weekend because we never stop. See,
I'm ready for Friday, dude.
That's the one thing. I don't pay too much.
Come on.
And I don't look at necessarily other radio shows as competitors because we are the only all-Raiders show in Las Vegas.
It's Sunday. I'm ready for Friday.
But you have Sports Adrenaline and you have CBS Sports Radio. And the thing is, I don't stop, man. You don't stop. Cordasco doesn't stop. Castanino doesn't stop. Haley Brooks doesn't stop as long as she's not eating sushi. Everything's good. And we just grind, man. You talk about Gruden and Gruden's grinders. We are grinders.
Yeah.
And so it's just grinds on. Speaking of that, on Friday, we're not just going to go watch the Raider game somewhere. We are hosting a Raider game watch party over at Legacy Stadium, over at Palazzo. Now, before you say, the Strip, it costs money to park, and blah, blah, if you're a local, that is. No, It's free parking. It's like Monopoly. You know, you hit that square.
Easy, too. You come right in off of Spring Mountain, Twain. It's one and the same for whatever reason. This city's weird with their way the streets are named. Yeah. It's
Sheldon Adelson Way.
It's Twain if you go down a little further.
It is Twain, right. But then that's Crack Alley, and we don't want to go down there.
It is. But it's easy. You come in off of there, the parking garage.
Yeah.
You park down, park in the parking garage, like not when you get into the levels, not on the left side, go to the right side where the elevators are. You pop up literally right on top of Legacy Stadium. You're right there. It's amazing. Man. It's 2-second walk.
And the event itself, it is a Raider event, folks. So don't think you're going to walk in, there's going to be a bunch of Lions fans. It's going to be.
Or, hey, you Donkey fans, you better stay away. Stay away. No, you're invited to.
Wilbur. So if you come out to the event, it starts at 7 o'clock. We are actually doing some broadcasting of our podcast live from 5 to 7, but we're in a booth, so you can't see us and you can't shake our hand and hit us in the face or whatever it is you want to do. But
it's a glass booth. I think you can see through the glass.
You can see through the glass.
Pretty confident they can see.
We can kind of feel like we're at a zoo.
Yeah.
And display. Hey, if it's Raider Nation, baby, you know it's going to be a zoo. I love it. So if you come down on Friday at 7 o'clock, the festivities will begin. Legacy Stadium, it's a sports bar, yes. It's awesome. It's got a stadium seating. That's why they call it a stadium. So it's leveled. A huge screen to watch the game because there's a sports book right in there, Matt.
Sports bar, sports book, restaurant. It's Emerald Lagasse food. Tuna tartare's bomb, dude. It's so good. That's one of my favorites.
I'm getting too fat again. I got to lose weight. I can't eat. I think I'm going to have to go just all liquid diet.
Tartare's lean, man.
Well, that tartare's fine. Yeah, I get you.
No, they've got great.
He can't
food.
score goals, but he's fine.
Man, dude.
Hockey reference.
20 goal a year guy.
I know. I'm just giving you crap. But come out to the event. How we went to
Golden Knights all of a sudden.
Come out to the event because not only are we doing that broadcasting and are we hosting and are we telling Raider Nation to come in mass, but we're going to do a program. So starting probably around 7:15-ish before the game starts, myself, you, Tony Cordasco, John Castanino, Haley Brooks are all going to be out there, and we're going to walk through a little bit of a preview of the game and talk about the Raiders and talk about the stuff that we always talk about because we're in the Raider business, right? But then at halftime, too, we're going to do the same thing. We'll review what happened in the first half. We're going to have some trivia. We're going to have some giveaways. Also, if you come in, mention that you heard it on the show, mention that you heard it through Silver and Black Today or Sports Adrenaline, they're going to give you a special drink. There's going to be a special drink just for Raider Nation.
Nice.
Yes, and it's not a 14-ounce bottle or 14-ounce glass of just tequila straight. It's going to be.
Although that might be the drink of choice.
That's what I was
talking about
say.
Raider Nation.
But you're going to come out. It's going to be fun. You're going to meet Colin Pulicella, our engineer there, who I believe you're single, right? Oh, dude. Okay, ladies.
We might get Sonia Schlobbaum out there too.
Sonia
she may be coming out. She's our engineer for Adrenaline.
Single guys, single girls. We're matchmakers here. We're all married.
Yeah, that's what we do.
So we're gonna get Colin's on his way up, dude.
Colin just left the room. What happened?
Colin, get on the microphone real quick, man. Come on, turn that on. We got to get you. We haven't got you on there in a while.
What's up, guys?
Okay, so you're single, right?
Yes, sir.
And you have a pinky ring, so you know you're a player.
Yep.
Baller.
Well, it used to be my dad's. My dad had his grandfather or his dad. When he passed away, he had a pinky ring, and my dad took that pinky ring, and then he gave me his old pinky ring.
Nice.
Wow. See
that's cool. I like the family stuff.
He wanted to, keep it in the family.
You're not originally from Vegas, but that's a Vegas story because it's a pinky ring.
Of course.
It's awesome.
We're Italian, so it works.
Come on, awesome.
Got a whole room full of Italians over here.
I know, man.
I gotta go.
Even though my last name isn't because of divorce and all that crap. But anyway, which we all know about too. But anyway, that is going to be fun. Now, Colin, you're going to come down. And if there's a young lady who wants to meet the best damn radio engineer in the world,
you didn't know the show was going to take this kind of turn, did you?
No, that's what we got to surprise. We're in the last segment. We got to give people some fun here. It is Raider related though, because we want to hook you up with a Raiderette.
Okay, I wouldn't mind that.
Or a potential Raiderette.
Okay,
all right,
that's fine.
I don't think he's too upset about that one.
And your hat says you can do all things.
Well, yeah, that's why I went with the hat.
I love it. I love it. That's so funny. Oh, he's on camera. Turn around, Colin.
The
Say
back
hello.
of his head is on camera.
See, there's Colin.
GoPro. There's the GoPro.
Look at that young guy. Good looking guy. Recent college graduate, so he's not a loser too.
That's what I was going for.
We have plenty of losers who graduated college too, but that's beside the point. Anyway, we're going to be out there. Colin will be out there, and we're going to have fun. So we want you to come down and join us where we talk Raiders as well. And now, next week, we want to give a quick congratulations to our friend Vinny Bonsignore, who was with the LA Daily News, Matt, and now he's gone to
The Athletic.
Oh my gosh, they're like building the dream team over there. That's what I texted him. I'm like, dude,
25,000 writers, man.
Oh my God, they're hiring everyone, and the rumor is that they're hiring Tony Cordasco to carry bags when they travel.
Yeah, that's about all he's good for at this point.
Tony's
gonna be everybody's valet.
Tony's got a problem with one of his fingers, but and that was not on camera because we're a family show. But nonetheless. But yeah, so congratulations to Vinny. He's going to be on next week because the Raiders will play the Rams next Saturday. So we'll have him on.
Which is cool in the Coliseum.
Yeah.
The Raiders haven't been in the Coliseum since '94.
Yes.
So, I mean, visually, it's going to be pretty cool. Sorry, Rams. Your stadium's about to get taken over. It's going to be silver and black strong in the Coliseum.
That's what I wanted to know, too, is Raider fans that are down there, are you going out? It's a stupid question.
Come on.
Right?
You know.
And I remember
it's going to be a takeover.
When I was in high school, and this is admitting to underage drinking, but when I was in high school,
family show,
we went up to. Oh, stop holding me accountable for my words. When I was in high school, we went up to see the Monsters of Rock tour. I was a rock guy, so Van Halen and all that, Metallica. We went up there, and around the Coliseum. Now I don't know if it's changed or not, but you have USC, which is a walled thing, so nobody can get in or out.
Right.
And then you have across from the Coliseum, you have all these liquor stores. And most of them, just saying fact, carry mostly really cheap, like screw top wines in a bottle, usually called
bunch of Four Loko.
Thunderbird.
What's the word?
Well, that's
Thunderbird.
That's right. And we got malt liquor, and so it was a hot summer afternoon. We get in the Coliseum. I've drinking way too much malt liquor, and so the headache. So by the time Metallica comes on, which of course James Hetfield, a Raider fan.
Yes,
the time Metallica comes on, my head was just throbbing, and it's terrible. Anyway, that's my Coliseum story.
Come out and see Scott drink Four Loko.
Friday, Palazzo Lagasse Stadium, 7 p.m. Join us for a Raider watch party, Raiders versus Lions. We'll talk to you next week. Check us out on silverandblacktoday.com. Listen for our podcast. For Macateras, I am Scott Gilbranson, executive producer Tony Cordasco. See you next time, Raider Nation, here on CBS Sports Radio, 1140 a.m.